Can we start now? So, Yasmin is saying we are on page 271 and we are on the last 2 lines of the page. Okay? So, I'll do one thing. I'll read the summary of the previous para and then I will ask one of you to start reading the para. So, the para which we read before, I am summarizing for you. Okay? So, in the integral yoga, once liberation and purification is largely completed, the sadhak can do divine works as an instrument of the Supreme Will. And what will that work be? The divine work, being immeasurable and endless, the normal mind of man cannot determine what it will be. It has to be determined by the divine will. The liberated consciousness of the sadhaka has moved out of the narrow limits and grooves, and it is now infinite, out of time and space. That is why the Gita says, however he lives and acts in me. Who? The one who has got liberation. The one who is not identified anymore with his body, mind and life. Okay? Sarva bhuta sthit. Then the Gita says, Sarva bhuta sthitam yo mam bhajati ekatvam asthita sarvata vartamano api sayogi mai vartate. What he's saying is, the one who is established in all human hearts, okay, if you worship him, then whatever you do in the physical world, you are actually working from a divine consciousness. What you are doing in the physical world is not important. You can be a carpenter, you can be a football player, you can be anything. But if your consciousness is always out of your body, mind, life and in the Brahmic consciousness, then you are in the divine. That's what he said. Then finally he said, no human rules can bind the free soul. You cannot tell a free man, you have to do this, you have to do that. He can do anything he wants. That yogi, no human rules can bind the free soul. He cannot be judged by the limited mind of man because it sees only surface movements and reactions. Our mind sees only surface, not the deeper parts. Mental judgments are fallible tribunals. Mental judgments are bad judges, you see. Okay? Of them. That yogi can be an ascetic or he can be a householder. He can engage in any human activity. He may be a spiritual leader of men like Buddha, Christ, Shakara, or a king like Janaka, or like Sri Krishna, a politician and a leader of armies. Of no importance is his food or clothes, his habits or his profession. Doesn't matter at all what he eats or what he wears. I remember one incident of Raman Maharshi, Sri Ranga eating meat. I think I've told you once, but I'll come back to it later. I'll finish the summary and come back. Of no importance is his food or clothes, his habits or his profession. His failure or success, his work of construction or destruction, all these matters not in the least. What he is doing externally has no importance at all. He can, if so commanded, support old standards or introduce new ones. Whatever the divine will wants him to do, he can do. He may mix with virtuous or with outcasts and reprobates. Reprobates means immoral people. Okay? He may mix with them. He may be condemned by contemporaries as a misleader of men or a troublemaker who disturbs the existing forms of religions. He is responsible only to God, in whom he lives and who guides him in every way. Sri Ranga's language here I have condensed, but he is referring to Socrates, who was told that he is corrupting the youth. Okay? But didn't make any difference to him. And they gave him hemlock poison to drink. He drank it very happily and passed away. Human judgment on him didn't make any difference. Then he's also talking about the Martin Luther. Martin Luther, who actually started destroying the Catholic religion. He made a new religion, the Protestant religion. Okay, so that's what he's saying. So now we have finished that. Now we come back to our. But if his action is governed by no external rule, that's what we read just now. His behavior has absolutely no standard. Nothing that you can tell him that you should not do this. He can do anything because he is living in the divine. His consciousness is the divine. His body-mind life is going on in the old grooves, his old habits. Okay? So now, one of you read the, but if his action. Who will read? Harika, you got the text? Because she comes on Tuesdays. And Pallavi also. Have you got the text? Maybe not. Pallavi, you got the text?
Yes, Rangada, I got it.
Then go ahead, read.
Rangada, I have the text. Yeah. Hello?
Yes, tell me.
Yeah, I have the text. Can I read?
Okay.
Or Pallu is reading? No, if Pallu is reading, fine. No problem.
So, Pallavi.
No, Tari, you read. No problem.
Okay.
Okay. But if his action is governed by no external rule, one rule it will observe that is not external. It will be dictated by no personal desire or aim, but will be a part of a conscious and eventually a well-ordered, because self-ordered divine working in the world. The Gita declares that the action of the liberated man must be directed not by desire, but towards the keeping together of the world, its government, guidance, impulsion, maintenance in the path appointed to it. This injunction has been interpreted in the sense that the world being an illusion in which most men must be kept, since they are unfit for liberation, he must so act outwardly as to cherish in them an attachment to their customary works laid down for them by the social law. If so, it would be a poor and petty rule, and every noble heart would reject it to follow rather the divine vow of Amitabha Buddha, the sublime prayer of the Bhagavata, the passionate aspiration of Vivekananda. But if we accept rather the view that the world is a divinely guided movement of nature, emerging in man towards God, and that this is the work in which the Lord of the Gita declares that he is ever occupied, although he himself has nothing ungained that he has yet to win, then a deep and true sense will appear for this great injunction. To participate in the divine work, to live for God in the world will be the rule of the Karma Yogin. To live for God in the world and therefore so to act that the divine may more and more manifest himself and the world go forward by whatever way of its obscure pilgrimage and move nearer to the divine ideal.
So, very nicely he said what the normal idea was in India at one time, that if you are not yet liberated, you continue to do the work that you are. Don't change it. Okay, that was the idea. If you are a carpenter, continue to be a carpenter. If you are anything, whatever your profession, you are a doctor, continue to do that. But that is what the Gita and Swayambhu are denying. They say, no, certainly not. You can do any work. You can go to any work. Remember, Christ himself also was a carpenter's son. But he completely changed and he was leading men afterwards. Like that, there are so many other, Kabir. Kabir was a weaver, and he became a teacher of men afterwards. So this is what is it. I'll read the summary and then we'll go into each sentence carefully. Okay? I'm reading the summary. You don't have it, huh? You have to listen. We have said that the liberated soul, the one who is not identified with his body, mind, life, but his soul, he knows that he is a soul and not the body, mind, life. We have said that the liberated soul is subject to no external rules. You cannot bind him down and say, you should not do this or you should not do that. He can do anything, it doesn't matter. Okay? But one rule, which is not external, but only subjective, is that the work he is guided to perform does not originate from his personal desire or aim. He must not think that I should do this. He should completely surrender to the divine and follow the divine dictates. That work will be directed by the divine for the benefit of mankind at large. The Gita phrases this truth by stating that that work will only be for the maintenance of the world order. The world order, the world evolution is going on according to the divine will. And if you think that some things are not okay and some things are good, you are not following the divine dictate. The divine knows better than you. So instead of deciding yourself what is good and what is bad, you decide to follow the divine will. And if you are in a position to do that, you do that. Okay? That work will be directed by the divine for the benefit of mankind at large. The Gita phrases this truth by stating that that work will only be for the maintenance of the world order. This action must be directed towards the good of all mankind. Now remember, in Sridhar's case, very interesting. Okay, first of all, he was supposed to be an administrator, but he became a professor. Then he gave up that job and went for the freedom of India, the independence movement. Now this was his own desire. He wanted to work for India's independence. Okay? But the divine told him, no, that's not your work. Your work is somewhere else. You have to do work for mankind. You have to bring down the soul mind. Go to Pondicherry. So that was the work that was given to him. Now he is doing the divine work. Okay? So the liberated consciousness of the sadhaka has moved out of the narrow limits and grooves and is now infinite, out of time and space. That is why the Gita says, however he lives and acts in me. Who is this? Not the normal man. The one who is liberated and free. Sarva bhuta sthitam yomam bhajati ekatvam asthita sarvata vartamano api sayogi mai vartate. No human rules can bind the free soul. It cannot be judged by the limited mind of man because it sees only surface movements and reactions. Mental judgments are false judges. They are wrong judges. That yogi can be an ascetic or a householder. He can engage in any activity. He may be a spiritual leader. We read the whole thing. I am rereading actually, not necessary. He is responsible only to God, in whom he lives and who guides him in every way. This is the summary of what we just now read. Okay? So, if it is clear, I think we can go to the next para. What do you say? Would you like to go through each sentence of the previous para, or would you like to go to the next? I want a reaction.
Ranga, we'll go to the next.
Okay, we'll do the next. So, Pallavi, you read the next. Which is starting with, how shall he do this? Yeah, go ahead.
How he shall do this, in what particular way can be decided by no general rule. It must develop or define itself from within. The decision lies between God and ourself, the supreme self and the individual self, that is the instrument of the work. Even before liberation, it is from the inner self, as soon as we become conscious of it, that there rises the sanction, the spiritual determined choice. It is altogether from within that must come the knowledge of the work that has to be done. There is no particular work, no law or form or outwardly fixed or invariable way of works which can be said to be that of the liberated being. The phrase used in the Gita to express this work that has to be done has indeed been interpreted in the sense that we must do our duty without regard to the fruit. But this is a conception born of European culture, which is ethical rather than spiritual, and external rather than inwardly profound in its concepts. No such general thing as duty exists. We have only duties often in conflict with each other, and these are determined by our environment, our social relations, our external status in life. They are of great value in training the immature moral nature and setting up a standard which discourages the action of selfish desire. It has already been said that so long as the seeker has no inner light, he must govern himself by the best light he has, and duty, a principle, a cause are among the standards he may temporarily erect and observe. But for all that, duties are external things, not stuff of the soul, and cannot be the ultimate standard of action in this path. It is the duty of the soldier to fight when called upon, even to fire upon his own kith and kin. But such a standard or any akin to it cannot be imposed on the liberated man. On the other hand, to love or have compassion, to obey the highest truth of our being, to follow the command of the divine are not the duties. These things are a law of nature as it rises towards the divine, an outflowing of action from a soul state, a high reality of spirit. The action of the liberated doer of works must be even such as outflowing from the soul. It must come to him or out of him as a natural result of his spiritual union with the divine and not be informed by an edifying construction of the mental thought and will, the practical reason or the social sense. In the ordinary life, a personal, social or traditional constructed rule, standard or ideal is the guide. Once the spiritual journey has begun, this must be replaced by an inner and outer rule or way of living necessary for our self-discipline, this liberation and perfection, a way of living proper to the path we follow or enjoined by the spiritual guide and master, the Guru, or else dictated by a guide within us. But in the last state of soul's infinity and freedom, all outward standards are replaced or laid aside, and there is left only a spontaneous and integral obedience to divine with whom we are in union, and an action spontaneously fulfilling the integral spiritual truth of our being and nature.
Okay, so part of this we have already discussed in the previous paragraph, but this is what we say. Again, I will just summarize and then we'll see what we can do with it. The work being specified not by oneself but by the master of works, the divine. How should the sadhak do it? By what particular method? No general rules apply here. The method is determined by the inner self and its relation with God. The individual soul and its relation with God. And that relation can vary. Okay? It can be one of knowledge, it can be one of bhakti, it can be one of works, it can be anything. It can be that is decided by the soul and the divine. This can even be fixed before liberation. Okay? The way determines itself by the inner growth, the knowledge of what work we have to do, and how it is determined by the development and growth of consciousness. Sridhar is a very good example of this, because his own desire, you can call it a desire, it's an aspiration to free his country. Nothing can be more noble, but there is something even more noble than that. Okay, that's the thing. We feel that that has to be done. So, the Gita's phrase, kartavyam karma, has often been misinterpreted as doing one's duty without desire for the fruit of works. This is not a spiritual understanding, but a moral one. That's what the Gita says. That means you have to do as a duty. It's not true. There is no duty for the liberated soul. Duty as a general concept does not exist in a spiritual life. One has many duties and often they are self-contradictory. These duties are determined by external circumstances, by social relations, social standards, and one's status in society, worldly life. You may be a peon or you may be a manager. All these are, in society, there are statuses. No doubt, duty has a value for training the immature man for desirous works to offset selfishness. Desire in the beginning, it is very useful, duties, because you must do what you have to do. A good example of this is simply saying contradictory duties. One good example is, I am from a poor family and I have to look after my family. I have to work so that my children can get a good education. A good education. Okay? But now suddenly my country goes to war and I am called to become a soldier. So that's a bigger responsibility and a nobler act. So you can do that by leaving, and there is a contradiction between the call of the nation and the call of the maintenance of the family. So like that there can be many, many contradictions. That's what I said. Duties are not something infallible and fixed. Okay, duties are at a lower level, they are very useful, not at a higher level. No doubt, the duty has a value for training the immature man for desireless works to offset selfishness. Yeah. In the ashram also we have so many duties. Suppose you are the head of a department and you have to do that. Even if you don't do it, okay, your desire may be to do something else, but you should do it without desire, because that's work given to you by the divine. So this is what he said. Even when the sadhaka's course of action is not clear, he must act at the height of his consciousness. Whatever. Duty is only one contributing factor to the individual's moral growth. Duties belong to the external world, not to the soul. That's what he said. Okay. A soldier has to perforce to kill if ordered, but his external duty does not apply to the interior duty. He can challenge his duty and say, no, it may be a duty in the outer world, but I am not going to kill. There was in America, this problem came up with Cassius Clay. Cassius Clay was that champion boxer. Muhammad Ali, they called him later on. Okay? He said, I won't go to Vietnam. Why should I kill somebody who has nothing to do with me? So he was given an idea of conscientious objector. It came in and he was allowed not to go to work. Okay. A soldier has perforce to kill if ordered, but his external duty does not apply to the interior yogin. He obeys only the divine, not any human rule or law. On the other hand, to love and have compassion is not a duty. They are soul's nature's laws in its growth upwards to God. So there is a difference between duties in the lower world and there are souls is not a duty. All action for the liberated soul must come from within the soul as a natural outflow of his relation with the divine. No mental rule, no social compulsion, no external necessity applies to him. All his actions must come from within or from his guru. Finally, only the divine command is binding on him. Nothing else binds him. This is what he said.
Rangada, one
Yes.
question.
Yeah.
You gave an example of Muhammad Ali, no?
Yeah.
Yes. But he was not a liberated soul, nor
No,
did America uh,
no,
think him. But if all those soldiers would have said, no, it is not my object to go and kill someone whom I don't know, then what would happen? I mean, this is an example because he was a celebrity or whatever. That was, he was given a...
let me tell you one thing. First of all everybody will not feel like that. They will feel that I have to do my duty. I gave that example not as a spiritual example, but only as a that duty is not something binding on you. That's all. I didn't give it as a spiritual example. First of all. Secondly,
Yes.
90% of humanity go only by their mental ideas and duties. Is a very strong idea in the mind. This is your duty to do this. Why you are not doing it? Okay. So,
That is true.
yeah, isn't it?
Yes. So no, he was given an option of not going because he was a celebrity, not because of a spiritual thing or anything, right?
It began like that. But afterwards, if anybody was not wanting to go, they had the liberty, they had the choice.
Yes.
They had the choice.
And another question was this about in Mahabharata, Arjuna, he was supposed, his duty was to fight against his kin,
That's right.
but he didn't want to, and then Shri Krishna informed him that it is it's a fight against dharma, not against the family.
That's
And
right.
so what is the, and then he becomes a liberated soul? No.
No, that's right. Because he was not a liberated soul, he was taking his idea, his moral idea. He was leaning on the moral idea. He challenged his own duty. But Sri Krishna told him that you are judging this from the lower mentality. So if you go to the higher mentality, you identify yourself with yourself, the divine will tell you what to do and not to do, and then you do that. So in this particular case, the divine didn't tell him that don't fight. He told him that no, fight.
Yes.
So then he fought. The divine can tell you anything. The divine can very well have told Arjuna that yes, you are right, you need not do a soldier's work, you do any other work. He could have told him. Okay? That's exactly what happened with Sri Ranga. He's fighting for India's independence, but the divine tells him that no, don't worry about this. You go and do some other work, which I will give you. So the difference is between the man who is in a lower level of consciousness, identified with body, mind, life, and the one who is not identified with body, mind, life, and is in the self. That's the difference. So in the self, when you are there, desires don't come, duties don't come. You just follow what you are told to do by the divine. That is
In Arjuna, he was not a liberated soul, but he had a guidance from the divine.
Yes. No, he was given this knowledge by showing him the truth. So for that time, he was shown that you have to do what the divine is telling you to do. Afterwards, he became an ordinary man. He didn't have liberation.
Okay.
When you get liberation, you understand the principle. And when you fall back again into the normal consciousness, then you obey the Lord because now I have seen the truth. I am at a lower level of consciousness, but I have been told the truth. I will do what the divine tells me to do. Okay? That's the thing.
But Ranga, most of the time we don't realize, no, what is, we are confused whether it is my mind which is telling or whether it is something inner which is telling. Most of the time we are always in that question, no?
That's right, you are right. That happens when you are identified with your body, mind, life. When you are in the lower consciousness. But for a short while, if you are lifted up into the self, many people have had the experience of the self in the ashram. Several people. But it doesn't stay. You have the experience and you come back. But when you come back, you remember the truth that you have been shown. And then you try to follow it. Okay? The view changes entirely once you go and have liberation. After liberation, you may fall back into the old consciousness. That's normally what happens. There's a difference between experience and realization. Realization does not come at one stroke. It comes by experiences, repeated experiences. Finally, the consciousness is stabilized in the realization. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have still 7 minutes. I think we can read one more para. Maybe we can read it. There is a very small para. In this deeper sense. So who will read today?
Shall I read?
Yes, please. Go ahead. In this deeper sense.
In this deeper sense in which we must accept the dictum of the Gita that action determined and governed by the nature must be our law of works. It is not. Certainly, the superficial temperament or the character or habitual impulses that are meant. But in the literal sense of the Sanskrit word, our own being, our essential nature, the divine stuff of our souls. Whatever springs from this root or flows from these sources is profound, essential, right. The rest, opinions, impulses, habits, desires, may be merely surface formations or casual vagaries of the being or impositions from outside. They shift and change. But this remains constant. It is not the executive forms taken by nature in us that are ourselves or the abidingly constant and expressive shape of ourselves. It is the spiritual being in us, and this includes the soul becoming of it that persists through time in the universe.
Yeah. So, very interesting what he's saying. Again, we'll just summarize. Okay. So what he's saying. Yeah.
Ranga, in my book, it is this deeper sense.
It is the spiritual being. Which one you see?
It starts like that. It is this deeper sense in which, not in.
It is this deeper sense. That's right. I also have that.
It's not starting with in, no?
Oh. Maybe Jasmine has got another text or what?
No, I don't know. By mistake, I must have said in. It is it only.
Acha, okay. So now there's one word, own being. This is this Sanskrit is swabhava, your own being. Note one thing interestingly, that there is a nature of the body mind life. That's your outer nature. But there is a nature of the soul. That is a swabhava. Okay? Swabhava, your own nature of the soul. Each soul is essentially divine, but it expresses itself in so many different ways when it comes down. The soul is a divine who has taken a decision to come down into the physical world to do a particular work. Okay? So, you must not mistake this swabhava for the outer nature. Okay, we often say, his swabhava is one of anger and jealousy. That is not the swabhava. That's the outer nature, which is very, very disposable. It can easily be, not easily, but by yoga it can be changed. But the swabhava of the soul doesn't change. Okay?
Rangana, the caste system was based on this swabhava, no?
The swabhava one does not know. One usually, that is what is meant by realization. When you have realization, you realize your own swabhava. And the swabhava is very interesting. It can be of so many different things, infinite things. But our Indian philosophy has boiled it down to mainly 4 types. Okay? Then the caste system comes in. Knowledge, then Kshatriya, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. These are the works assigned to you, but there can be many combinations of these, infinite combinations. So that's your swabhava. Okay? So, this is what Ranga is saying. Your own being is one thing. So, I'll read, I've got 2 minutes, so I'll read the summary. Okay? Each soul in manifestation may be essentially divine, but there is a divergence and diversification of outward nature. No two men are absolutely similar in character, however closely they may resemble each other. Similarly, each soul has its own character and function in the world. This is the swabhava of soul, own nature, own being. This swabhava does not pertain to the outer nature, but the soul nature. The Gita's injunction has to be understood in this sense. Each liberated soul has to work in accordance and harmony with its own swabhava. Whatever issues out of this inner nature is always the right thing. The superficial nature's thoughts, impulses, desires are of no essential lasting value. They are volatile, casual, transient formations. Eternal things, but the swabhava, they are volatile, casual, transient formations, external things. But the swabhava of the soul is constant. It is a soul, the inner reality within us that is the permanent. This is what is saying. Okay? So we have reached 8:40. Correctly, we will end the half. So next time, we will read the we cannot. Let's start from there. I'll also make a note, but you can also make a note. 274, we cannot. Okay? So if there are no questions, we will stop here today. Au revoir, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Ranga.
Yes.
Au revoir, Dada.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sima. Everybody. Au revoir and have a nice day. I'm closing. Okay?